Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Speaking Practice. And see, I'm Mike, and with me is my co host Emma. How are you today, Emma?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing great, thanks. Excited for today's topic on mastering the art of conversation. It's something we all do every day, but there's always room for improvement, right?
Absolutely. Whether it's for socializing, professional networking, or public speaking, having strong conversation skills can make a huge difference. So, let's dive in. Where should we start?
Let's start with the basics. Why is it important to have good conversation skills?
Good point. I think one of the main reasons is that effective communication helps build and maintain relationships. Whether you're talking to friends, family, colleagues, or strangers, the way you communicate can significantly impact your interactions and the connections you form.
Exactly, and it's not just about talking, it's about listening, understanding, and responding appropriately. Good conversation skills can also boost your confidence, help you resolve conflicts, and even open up new opportunities in both your personal and professional life.
Definitely. Now, let's talk about some key elements of a good conversation. What do you think are some of the most important aspects, Emma?
I'd say one of the most crucial elements is active listening. This means really paying attention to what the other person is saying, not just waiting for your turn to speak. It involves showing genuine interest, nodding, and sometimes even paraphrasing to ensure you understood correctly.
That's a great point. Active listening can make the other person feel valued and understood, which is essential for meaningful conversations. Another important aspect is asking open ended questions. Instead of asking questions that can be answered with a simple yes or no, try to ask questions that encourage the other person to elaborate and share more about their thoughts and feelings.
Absolutely. Open-ended questions can lead to deeper and more engaging conversations. Also, being aware of nonverbal cues is important. Body language, facial expressions, and eye contact can convey a lot of information and affect the flow of the conversation.
Right. And let's not forget about empathy. Being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand their perspective can help you respond more thoughtfully and build stronger connections.
Empathy is key. Now, let's move on to some practical tips for improving conversation skills. Mike, do you have any personal tips or strategies that have worked for you?
One thing that has helped me a lot is practicing mindfulness. Being present in the moment and fully engaged in the conversation can make a big difference. It helps me stay focused and reduces the tendency to get distracted or think about what I'm going to say next.
That's a great tip. I find that preparation can also be helpful, especially for more formal or important conversations. Doing a bit of research, thinking about potential topics, and even rehearsing can boost your confidence and make the conversation flow more smoothly.
Preparation is definitely important. Another tip is to work on your storytelling skills. Being able to share stories and experiences in an engaging way can make your conversations more interesting and memorable.
I love that. Stories can be powerful tools for connecting with others and conveying your message in a relatable way. And speaking of stories, do you have any personal experiences or anecdotes that illustrate the importance of good conversation skills?
Sure. I remember a time when I was at a networking event and felt pretty nervous. I wasn't sure how to start conversations or keep them going. But then I remembered to focus on active listening and asking open ended questions. Once I started doing that, I found that people were much more receptive and the conversations flowed much more naturally. It turned out to be a great networking experience.
That's a perfect example. Sometimes just focusing on the basics can make a huge difference. I had a similar experience when I was meeting some new colleagues. I was worried about making a good impression, but by showing genuine interest in their stories and asking thoughtful questions, I was able to build rapport quickly.
It really goes to show that the fundamentals of good conversation are universally applicable. Now, let's talk about some common challenges people face when it comes to conversation skills. One common challenge is dealing with nervousness or anxiety. Do you have any tips for overcoming this, Emma?
Yes, nervousness is a common issue. One technique that works well is deep breathing. Taking a few slow, deep breaths before and during a conversation can help calm your nerves. Also, try to shift your focus from worrying about how you're being perceived to genuinely connecting with the other person. This mindset shift can reduce anxiety and make the conversation more enjoyable.
That's great advice. Another challenge is dealing with awkward silences. They can be uncomfortable, but they don't have to derail the conversation. One strategy is to have a few go-to topics or questions in mind that you can use to reignite the discussion. And remember, A little silence is natural and can give both parties a moment to gather their thoughts.
Absolutely. And if you're ever in doubt, asking the other person about their interests or experiences is usually a safe bet. People generally enjoy talking about themselves, and it can lead to more engaging and dynamic conversations.
For sure. Another challenge some people face is maintaining a balance between talking and listening. It's important to contribute to the conversation, but also to give the other person space to share their thoughts. Finding that balance can take some practice.
That's a good point. One way to strike that balance is by being mindful of how much you're talking and actively encouraging the other person to share their perspective. Phrases like, "What do you think?" or "I'd love to hear your thoughts on this" can be really effective.
Great tips, Emma. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about the role of technology in modern conversations. With the rise of social media and digital communication, how do you think these tools impact our conversation skills?
Technology has definitely changed the way we communicate. On one hand, it has made it easier to stay connected with people across the globe. On the other hand, it can sometimes lead to more superficial interactions and shorter attention spans. I think it's important to find a balance and not let digital communication replace meaningful face-to-face conversations.
I agree. Social media and messaging apps can be great for staying in touch, but they don't always allow for the depth and nuance of in-person conversations. It's important to make an effort to have real, face-to-face interactions whenever possible.
Definitely. And when we do use technology for communication, it's important to be mindful of how we use it. For example, using video calls can be more engaging than text messages because you can see the other person's facial expressions and body language.
That's a good point. Video calls can help bridge the gap between digital and in-person communication. Also, being mindful of our screen time and setting boundaries can help ensure that we're not neglecting our real-world interactions.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, let's share some resources for our listeners who want to further improve their conversation skills. Do you have any recommendations, Mike?
Yes, there are some great books on this topic. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a classic. It's packed with practical advice on building strong relationships and communicating effectively.
That's a great recommendation. Another book I like is Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High by Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. It offers strategies for navigating difficult conversations and achieving positive outcomes.
Excellent choice. There are also plenty of online courses and workshops on communication skills. Websites like Coursera and Udemy offer courses on public speaking, active listening, and other related topics.
Definitely. And for those who prefer podcasts, there are some great ones out there that focus on communication and personal development. The Art of Charm and The Tim Ferriss Show are two of my favorites.
Those are fantastic resources. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Thanks for the great conversation, Emma, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Speaking Practice.
Thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure. And to our listeners, remember to practice your conversation skills and stay curious. Until next time, happy chatting.
Additional segment: role-playing scenarios.
Welcome back, listeners. Before we sign off, Emma and I thought it would be fun to do some role-playing scenarios to demonstrate practical conversation skills. Ready, Emma?
Absolutely. Let's do it. What's our first scenario, Mike?
Let's start with a classic, meeting someone new at a social event. I'll be the host, and you'll be the guest. Ready?
Ready.
Role-playing. Hi there. I don't think we've met before. I'm Mike.
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you. I'm Emma. How do you know the host?
Oh, I've known John since college. We were roommates back then. How about you?
That's great. John and I work together. He's always talking about his college days. So what do you do, Mike?
I'm a graphic designer. I love creating visual content for different brands. What about you?
That sounds interesting. I'm a project manager in the tech industry. It's a lot of organizing and planning, but I enjoy it. What kind of projects do you work on?
Mostly marketing materials and web design. It's a lot of fun to bring ideas to life visually. So, do you enjoy working in tech?
I do. It's fast-paced and always evolving, which keeps things exciting. By the way, I love graphic design. Do you have a portfolio I could check out?
Sure, I'd love to share it with you. I'll send you a link. Thanks for asking.
Great, I'd love to see your work. It was nice talking to you, Mike.
Nice talking to you too, Emma. Enjoy the party.
And scene. See how we kept the conversation flowing by asking open-ended questions and showing genuine interest?
Exactly. It's all about finding common ground and building on it. Let's do another scenario. How about handling a difficult conversation at work?
Good idea. I'll be the employee and you be the manager. Ready?
Ready. Role playing. Hi, Emma. Thanks for meeting with me. I've noticed that there have been some delays in your recent project submissions. Can we talk about what's been going on?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for bringing this up. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss it. I've been facing some challenges with balancing multiple projects. I'm finding it difficult to manage my time effectively.
I see. It's definitely tough to juggle multiple projects. Have you considered any specific strategies to help manage your workload?
Yes, I've started using a project management tool to organize my tasks, but I still struggle with prioritizing them. Do you have any suggestions?
One approach that might help is breaking down your tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks and setting clear priorities. Also, don't hesitate to communicate with your team about your workload. They might be able to offer support or adjust deadlines if needed.
That's a good idea. I'll try breaking down my tasks and prioritizing them more effectively. I'll also keep my team informed about my progress and any challenges I'm facing.
Great. And remember, it's important to take breaks and manage your stress. If you ever feel overwhelmed, please reach out. We're here to support you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your understanding and support. I'll do my best to improve my time management and keep you updated.
Thanks, Emma. I have confidence in your ability to handle this. Let's touch base again in a week to see how things are going.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Mike.
And scene. Notice how we focused on understanding the issue and finding constructive solutions?
Exactly. It's important to approach difficult conversations with empathy and a problem-solving mindset. That way, you can work together to find a positive outcome.
Well, that wraps up our role-playing segment. We hope you found these scenarios helpful. Remember, practice makes perfect. Don't be afraid to try out different techniques and see what works best for you.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Speaking Practice. Happy chatting, everyone.
Some questions and answers related to the topic of speaking practice.
What are some key elements of a good conversation?
Key elements of a good conversation include active listening, asking open-ended questions, being aware of nonverbal cues, showing empathy, and maintaining a balance between talking and listening. These elements help create a meaningful and engaging dialogue.
How can I improve my active listening skills?
To improve active listening skills, focus on the speaker, avoid interrupting, and show that you're listening through nodding and maintaining eye contact. Additionally, paraphrase what the speaker has said to ensure understanding and ask follow-up questions to encourage them to elaborate.
What are some strategies for dealing with nervousness during conversations?
Strategies for dealing with nervousness include deep breathing, shifting focus from worrying about how you're being perceived to genuinely connecting with the other person, and preparing in advance by thinking of potential topics and questions. Practicing mindfulness can also help you stay present and calm.
How can I handle awkward silences in a conversation?
Handling awkward silences can be done by having a few go-to topics or questions in mind to reignite the discussion. Asking the other person about their interests, experiences, or thoughts on a recent event can also help. Remember that a little silence is natural and gives both parties a moment to gather their thoughts.
What role does body language play in a conversation?
Body language plays a significant role in a conversation as it can convey feelings and attitudes. Positive body language, such as maintaining eye contact, nodding, and having an open posture, can show that you're engaged and interested. Being aware of your own body language and reading others' nonverbal cues can enhance communication.
How can I balance talking and listening in a conversation?
Balancing talking and listening involves being mindful of how much you're speaking and actively encouraging the other person to share their perspective. Using phrases like, "What do you think?" or "I'd love to hear your thoughts on this," can help. Ensure you're not dominating the conversation and give the other person ample opportunity to contribute.
What are some tips for improving storytelling skills in conversations?
Improving storytelling skills involves being clear and concise, using vivid descriptions, and adding personal touches to make the story relatable. Practice telling stories to different audiences and pay attention to their reactions to understand what works best. Structure your story with a clear beginning, middle, and end to keep it engaging.
How can technology impact our conversation skills?
Technology can both positively and negatively impact our conversation skills. It makes staying connected easier, but can lead to more superficial interactions and shorter attention spans. To mitigate negative effects, prioritize face-to-face interactions, use video calls for more engaging digital communication, and set boundaries for screen time to ensure meaningful, real-world interactions.
What resources can help improve conversation skills?
Resources to improve conversation skills include books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie and Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson and others. Online courses on platforms like Coursera and Udemy, as well as podcasts focused on communication and personal development, can also be helpful.
How can empathy enhance a conversation?
Empathy enhances a conversation by allowing you to understand and share the feelings of the other person. This understanding can help you respond more thoughtfully and build stronger connections. Showing empathy involves active listening, validating the other person's feelings, and responding in a supportive manner.
What are some practical tips for preparing for an important conversation?
Practical tips for preparing for an important conversation include doing research on the topic, thinking about potential questions and responses, and rehearsing key points. Visualization techniques and mindfulness can help calm nerves. Having a clear goal for the conversation and being ready to listen and adapt as needed are also important.
How can open-ended questions improve a conversation?
Open-ended questions improve a conversation by encouraging the other person to elaborate and share more about their thoughts and feelings. These questions can't be answered with a simple yes or no, which leads to deeper and more engaging discussions. Examples include, "What do you think about?" or "Can you tell me more about?"
Goodbye, everyone.